Welcome back to some new Malicious Compliance Stories. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Speech Compliance. Back when I was in high school, a long time ago, whenever an important date approached, we would line up in the courtyard and would have to be standing still in formation. One of the teachers would do a speech about the date and the importance of it. Those speeches would usually be around 10 to 15 minutes long, so about as long as it was humanly possible to keep 150 teenagers lined up and standing still in formation and listening. The teacher doing the speech would rotate amongst all the faculty, and since there were quite a few teachers, each teacher was due around once a year or less than that. There was one notable omission on the teacher's roster. The mechanography teacher never did a speech. Never. Let's call him Mac. He would always refuse and get away with it for whatever reason. In around 30 or so years of teaching at the school, it became famous that he never did a speech. Until this one day, when I guess the dean got out of his bed on his wrong foot or whatever, and he absolutely demanded Mac to do the speech. There was no way to get away with it. Mac would have to do it. His first speech in 30 or so years at the school. Even some of the faculty, former students of Mac themselves, were excited to see the outcome of this power struggle between Mac and the dean. So we lined up at the courtyard. 150 students, 15 to 20 teachers, etc. etc. And Mac took the stand and the mic with definitely a smirk of malicious compliance on his face. And he delivered. More than 45 minutes of an absolutely rousing speech, telling every single minute detail and fact about the date in question. For the students, it was destruction, having to stand still and silent for almost an hour. Failing to do so was one of the most punishable offenses. Trying not to fall asleep on our feet. The dean tried to stop Mac twice. The first time, Mac just completely ignored the dean. The second time, Mac just plainly told the dean, "You wanted me to do the speech. Deal with it," for the whole audience to listen. Around 30 to 35 minutes, some of the older, I don't care anymore students started shouting things at Mac. Not hurtful things, but colorful commentaries about the speech. We started laughing. Mac carried on as if nothing happened. Dean tried to take the stand to demand silence. Mac denied the dean, saying, "I'm not finished yet." That day we lost probably 1.5 hours of teaching time. We ended up hating Mac for the torture he put us through. When he finished, the dean had no choice but to give us a short, unscheduled break before returning to class. Mac never did a speech again at the school. The next story is called Closing Shift. Way back in the day, I delivered pizza to make additional money while in college. Not at a high-end place. Let's call it Krusty's. The manager was an okay guy. The assistant manager, not so much. The only requirement I had working there was I would not work nights before exams. This was usually not a problem. One day was looking especially busy, and the manager asked me if I could work the night before a final exam. As he was okay, I agreed, as long as he scheduled me for the early shift, not closing. He agreed. Assistant B was in charge that night, and she absolutely hated to close. So the first thing when I walked in, she stated, "You are closing tonight." I replied, "No, that was not the agreement. I will be working the early shift as I have an exam tomorrow. Sorry, but you don't have a choice in the matter." "I don't?" "Nope, you would be wrong in that." And with that I proceeded to take off my shirt, throw it behind the counter and left with a final, "I'm outta here." After I arrived home shirtless, I received a frantic call from the manager as to why I quit. This was pre-cell phone. I regaled him with Assistant B's orders, and he begged me to return and said he would notify Assistant B that first, I would be the first one off, and second, she would be closing. Assistant B didn't even deign to speak with me for weeks. No big loss. I eventually graduated and went on to other jobs. About 5 to 6 years later, I run into the manager and we greet each other and talk about what's been going on. Whatever happened to Assistant B? She was a real jerk. Well, I married her. Oops, I'm sorry I said that, but we never got along. Nope, you were right the first time. The last story is called 3 Days. I used to manage the activations department for an ISP. I wouldn't say I managed the team, as my style is they worked with me, not for me. I was simply the department's leader. The company had been growing for quite some time, but unfortunately not hiring enough staff to cover the growth. I started in the support department before being moved to this position after the entire old activations team quit. The old team of 3 plus the manager used to have one person work on the oldest tickets in their queue. The other 2 would work on the newest tickets to keep things moving, being interrupted by calls, walk-ups and messages. The manager would handle billing and cancellations. The same ticket would often get handled by multiple agents in a day, often the same agent multiple times too. Almost every day they were all doing unpaid overtime. We are all salaried employees to handle the spillover from support throughout the night. When they quit, they had about 1,000 order tickets. Complaints were common, but not outrageous. I knew that was unsustainable given the growth in acquisitions. By the time this happened, we had over 3,000 tickets and almost no complaints with the same number of less experienced staff. To put that number in a little more perspective, that was 2 to 3 times as many tickets as every other department combined. We made many changes over time, and I became an expert in the backend of the ticketing system. But the biggest change was we changed our workflow to our priority system, and everything now had a due date. All new tickets had a due date of the day they came in. If the customer wanted their connection on a different date and the pre-check showed no tag was required, that became the new due date. If a tag was needed, the appointment became the due date. If the customer emailed us against their ticket or any update happened to the ticket, the due date changed automatically from whatever it was to today. So we could be across the developments as customers' request dates and tag dates could be months into the future. Suddenly, the age of the ticket didn't matter, just the due date. And this reduced so much double handling, and customer updates were responded to quickly, and calls dropped significantly. My priorities were handling the cancellations and billing. When done, I followed the same priority as the team, unless I was in a meeting. The team's priorities were: first, get new orders and relocations vetted, tags booked and set applicable due dates. Second, activate the completed orders or update the customer, tag and due date if there were issues. 3. Important. Escalate overdue orders and follow up escalations. Due date. 4. Activate voice orders. And 5th, finally everything else that was due today. It became a well-oiled machine. The escalations were maybe 0.5 to 1% of our orders. As we had so few complaints and typically raving positive reviews from our customers, the general manager didn't really understand how we worked, or the depth of the changes that made us so efficient. My daily report was usually skipped in the end-of-day meetings as we had minimal issues. He focused on the other departments. The way we worked now meant that tech issues or appointment issues were also escalated and resolved quickly as nothing slipped through the cracks anymore. The internet wholesaler worked really well with us as we set clear expectations with our customers. And we always had great data to back up the escalation process. Our most remote customers who had to wait long times for techs completely understood. Usually a tech was taking a chartered bush flight out there, followed by some off-road driving to get to the customer to get a satellite internet connection installed. These customers were often hundreds of kilometers from the nearest town and understood the logistics that would be involved and the waiting periods. Very rarely was this an issue. Now, while we had so many orders coming in, we had just as many, usually more some days, customers cancelling their services. This was largely due to the long support wait times or poor quality support response emails. This meant the general manager was panicking about our record showing we were losing customers to the board and shareholders. In front of everyone, he had a massive yelling fit directed at me about the company's negative growth. That this was my fault and I need to have every customer connected within 3 days, or else we escalated. We have too many orders not connected. No more excuses from the wholesaler. Did I mention they were great and moved heaven and earth for us? Escalating these and getting them connected was our #1 priority. Follow them up daily. He said enough of my team slacking off, etc. Everyone's jaws around me dropped. They knew we weren't perfect, but we were the smoothest running department in the company. I saw red and took a breath. That's fine. After that public dressing down, I immediately sent him an email, confirming what he just said. I got it back in writing. Tags take longer than 3 days. Those orders and escalations become our #1 priority. He didn't say business days. So I sat with my team and informed them that our ticket queue is going to be in our world of hurt. But we need to make it clear to him that he doesn't understand how we work, what we do, and that the way he spoke about us was inappropriate. They are not to stress about the numbers. They are not to do unpaid overtime. I don't care that they are on a salary. Salary accounts for reasonable overtime, and this is not reasonable. They are to end work when their shift ends. Do not accept time off in lieu. Only accept paid overtime. I will take the fallout. They aren't paid to be stressed. Most days we have to work on about 300 tickets in total. And today was a Friday. The customer not getting connected until Tuesday. Well, that's 4 days. Escalate. The customer's roads are impassable due to flood, so tech has to wait for dry weather. Too bad. Escalate. We escalated about 50 new orders that day. This meant Monday we had the usual weekend and Monday orders, plus those 50. That day over 100 new orders were escalated, plus the 50 followed up. So our queue reflected we had about 450 tickets due. Less than a third of the new connections got connected, even though our tech wasn't needed. Next day, the same thing. Except only a handful of orders got connected. Now we had 600 tickets overdue. By Thursday, support was hammered by people asking about their connections. Overdue tickets hit the thousands. Wait times blew out, orders got cancelled, and complaints got raised. On the next Monday, the support managers were screaming at me to get my department in order. I directed them to the general manager. A meeting was called with all department managers over the current state the business found themselves in. When I was asked what was going on, I simply pointed to the email, referenced the dressing down my team got, and informed him I was simply following orders. That's ridiculous. Use your brain. You should know what should be escalated. I pointed out that I thought I did, right up until you screamed at me in front of the entire company and belittled me and my team. You made it clear I have no idea what I'm doing and to do what you say. He informed me to go back to the way we operated, and he will review my workflows in detail at a later date. I tried to say it won't be that simple. We need to follow the escalations through with wholesale. Getting our queue back in order will take weeks. He wasn't having it. No, the new orders were our #1 priority again. Get people connected. I again moved to object, but another angry outburst informs me to do as he says. Cue Malicious Compliance Round 2 and another follow-up email confirming. We stopped following up on the escalations as we had too many new order tickets to process. By the end of the week, the wholesaler called an emergency meeting with the company board, a meeting I was not a part of. They were threatening to pull our wholesale agreement due to the escalated orders not being in line with their metrics, and we had inundated their staff also. Not only that, we were no longer keeping up our end of the bargain following them up. This wholesaler was where a significant majority of our customers were fed from. After this meeting finished, I was pulled from my seat to explain myself to the board. Emails were prepared, and with the support and sales managers with me for support and as witnesses, I explained everything. I was cleared to leave. My team and I were given a blank check for overtime to get us back in order. Unfortunately, no other staff from other teams could assist in a meaningful way. But my team was only too happy to put in as many hours of paid overtime as workplace laws would allow. The company also supplied dinners. It ended up taking us over 6 weeks to undo the damage the general manager had us cause with the overtime. The wholesaler also reduced the remuneration we got paid, as they no longer considered us a top-tier ISP. My reports were no longer skimmed, and the general manager sat with me often to understand how we worked and complimented me on the innovations from my team's suggestions. He also didn't order me around like that again, but asked for input before making recommendations. We also did get our top-tier ranking back eventually. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.